I think he did a brilliant job over at Blackpool. Promoted in your first full season as a manager. Perhaps there was a sense of him moving when his stock was high. He hasn't been away long, and Neil Critchley is back in the Championship as the new QPR boss. Get your thoughts in the comments on the hire. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Right, are you listening carefully? Because this is a very roundabout route for this job to open up and for Neil Critchley to indeed be available to take this job. We need to start on the 28th of April, which is before the end of last season, but QPR announced that their manager then, Mark Warburton, was going to be leaving at the end of his contract. 1st of June then, in comes Mark Warburton's replacement at QPR. That would be Mick Beale, who had been working at Aston Villa as an assistant to Steven Gerrard. One day later, on the 2nd of June, so presumably this was all part of Beale actually being allowed to leave Aston Villa, Neil Critchley leaves Blackpool, so he's the first team manager at Blackpool in the Championship, to go up a level in terms of league, but down a level in terms of being an assistant to Steven Gerrard at Aston Villa. So everybody's in situ at their jobs now. Beale at QPR, Critchley on the staff at Aston Villa, Steven Gerrard the manager there. Should mention Gio van Bronckhorst is the manager up in Scotland at Rangers. And on the 20th of October, with Mick Beale being linked with the Wolves job in the Premier League, he gives that now infamous interview talking about his integrity and the fact that in the face of being linked with a Premier League job, that he couldn't be the first out of the door. Now, the 20th of October is a key day here because it was not only the day that Mick Beale gave that interview in the morning, or rather it was published in the morning, but in the evening, Aston Villa go off to Fulham, lose heavily 3-0, and Stevie Gerrard that evening is sacked as Villa manager. The backroom staff are going to go too, so now Neil Critchley is without a job. Roll on 5 weeks, and Mick Beale has decided he's going to be the first person out the door. Off he goes to Scotland to take the Rangers job, which now opens up the QPR job. Neil Critchley is, of course, available with Stevie Gerrard and his team having been sacked at Aston Villa. 11th of December, so this is yesterday, after QPR had lost at home to Burnley on the return of the Championship, Neil Critchley was named as the QPR boss, once again taking the seat vacated by Mick Beale. Does that all make sense? Now, prior to Neil Critchley walking out effectively on Blackpool, if you asked me my take on him, it would have been entirely positive. I think he did a brilliant job over at Blackpool. He was appointed during that COVID shutdown in 1920 season. Remember, League One actually stopped, didn't it? And Blackpool were kind of neither here nor there in the middle. And frankly, the start of his first full season, it didn't move off as quickly as it finished. Put it that way. They went on a hell of a tear, all the way up to 3rd place in the table. Left themselves too much to do in terms of automatic promotion. But they were, I think, a cut above in the playoffs. Beat Lincoln in the final. Jobs are good, and promoted in your first full season as a manager. Brilliant stuff from Critchley. Brilliant stuff from Blackpool. And then in the Championship, comfortably, I think they were 16th. They got 60 points. In other seasons, I think maybe you'd be a little bit higher than that with that total. But look, it is what it is. And I think it was a job very, very well done. They were never in any danger of going down. And if memory serves me correctly, I think around sort of autumn time, the momentum from that League One season had them, I guess, 6th, 7th up in the table. Really, really good job, I think, by Critchley. Now, we then go into the moral maze that we've discussed at length in terms of Beale leaving QPR for Rangers. We had this with Critchley as well, leaving Blackpool for Aston Villa. Look, the thing that surprised me the most, rather than him leaving the job, was to go from a Championship first team manager to a Premier League assistant manager. I found that a bit bizarre. Once you got in the big chair, is that a step back, even if you go into a bigger club, a bigger division, however, use whatever words you're comfortable to describe the jump from Blackpool to Aston Villa? Look, we went back and forth on the moral implications, and I almost understand it from both points of view here. Obviously, the Blackpool fans and the QPR fans can empathise in terms of Beale and Rangers and going up to Scotland. That what was right, maybe for the person in the job in terms of their career, is not right for the fans at the time. And I can understand. I suppose the difference between Critchley and Beale is there was no clanging interview that was going to be maybe a little bit embarrassing once he had made a decision that he considered right for his career. I think maybe, and this is not about Beale, this is about Critchley, but maybe a lesson learned. But if you look at it, he ended last season at Blackpool. Perhaps there was a sense of him moving when his stock was high. Could he take Blackpool any further? Did he know with that ownership there that there wasn't going to be too much more money coming in? Would it be better to leave with your head held high at that point, maybe at a peak? I don't know. There's an argument for that. But he's certainly fallen on his feet because only a few months later, yes, with a sacking on his CV now at Villa, which in some ways you can palm off on the manager rather than, is it an assistant's fault that a manager gets sacked from a club? He's now at a championship club with probably greater aspirations. So, although the Blackpool fans might still be a little bit smarting about it, it hasn't actually worked out that badly for Critchley or indeed QPR if you line up Warburton and Critchley. You can have a view on that. One of the things I really liked about Critchley at Blackpool was, just for tactical diversity, he played a 4-4-2 with 2 strikers and 2 wingers. It was Sims and Yates in League One. Obviously, Sims is now with Sunderland doing good things on loan from Everton in the Championship. He added in sort of Gary Medine and Shane Lavery as well when they were in the Championship. And he did get a tune out of Medine. I know QPR fans have been a bit up and down on Lyndon Dykes. Maybe it might be a good fit for him this hire. The wide men were interesting. Josh Bowler was an absolute star, wasn't he? And ended up going to Forest and then out to Olympiacos, as tends to happen. And Keshi Anderson as well. He got injured. But it was genuinely 2 wide men. The Villa stuff was very 4-3-3 with Gerrard, and I think they just lost the plot tactically at the end there, trying to get some results. But maybe too short a sample size there for us to take into account that period in terms of what Critchley might do now at QPR. In terms of QPR's expectation and what Critchley will be expected to deliver, since relegation from the Premier League, 12th, 18th, 16th, 19th, 13th, 9th and 11th. I think those 3 are all Warburton numbers there. Obviously, I think there was Holloway and Hasselbank and McLaren and too many for me to remember as well. QPR last season, though, they did look like a playoff team for most of the season, I have to say. And remember the way it panned out. That door was wide open below sort of Fulham and Bournemouth, with Huddersfield taking advantage to the playoff final and that Forest surge. So disappointing end to the season given some of the players and how QPR looked. Big collapse from pretty much February, I would say. They've got good players though. Dieng in goal is very good. He's just come back from the World Cup. Dickey at centre half, we've rated him for a couple of seasons now. Fullbacks, Parle and Laird on loan, good. And then the stating the bleeding obvious, Chair and Willock in terms of Championship and players that can really make a difference, win your games, set your team on a run. They are very, very good, those 2. I'm fascinated if it is 4-4-2 and you've got these 2 key players, Chair and Willock, who maybe prefer the half positions, maybe coming in as a 10 off the left or off the right. I don't know. In a 4-4-2, I quite like the idea of Willock up top in a 2, maybe with Dykes. Who knows? I think he has played up top for Rangers before. Maybe Chair, stick him in central midfield. Can he run the game there? Hell, he could stick them out on both wings. That might be lots of fun, but it might be a little bit easier to mark them there. Or we won't see a 4-4-2 at all from Critchley, and he'll play to suit his best players, and it might be the 3 that's been used up top by Mick Beale and getting those full-backs forward. Who knows? What I would say is, in this current Championship landscape, looking at the teams that don't have parachute payments, we're then looking at, I think, playoff challenges or a complete lightning in a bottle season. If you've got Chair and Willock and they play most of the games and they both turn up, you're going to win more games than you lose. So, they should be around it if those two stay fit and if the coaching is competent, which we expect it to be. So my take then, for what it's worth, is that I think Critchley's a really good manager. He was superb at Blackpool. Yes, there is that idea of, was it a bit of a balmy decision with hindsight to leave a first team manager's position for a Premier League assistant's position? Obviously, it didn't work out. He's got sacked. He's back. Maybe he won't do it again. As I said, I'm looking forward to him working with those two star players. And I suppose the Blackpool fans are going to be looking forward to the 14th of March, Blackpool v QPR. That should be a fun atmosphere for Critchley's return up to Bloomfield Road. Get your thoughts down there in the comments then. I would love, not just to hear from QPR fans on this one, love to hear from Blackpool fans and Aston Villa fans on how they perceive Critchley and how they think he's going to do at QPR. If you want some fun, stay with the channel. I say fun. Click up here. And that is my take on Mick Beale up to Rangers. Spoiler alert and warning, the comments do include lots of Rangers fans repeatedly telling me, you, everyone, quite how massive they are.